Hey, how's it going, everyone? Sinister of the Gamer section here to bring you an interview. And of course, I'm gonna go ahead and let my guest introduce himself.
Hey y'all, my name's Alex. I'm part of the Round Toast Studios team. We're here making Mortal Rite.
All right, all right. Oh yeah, but right before we get into Mortal Rite, basically, we're just gonna go like from the beginning. Like, do you like had any favorite games growing up? Things like that, just to start off.
Personally, when I grew up, I didn't really play any games that were really similar to this type. I played a lot of the more kind of sports games and racing games. Um,
Okay,
I had to do a lot of research on this genre, and the other guys here just said that this was kind of the stuff that we were going into. Um,
okay.
yeah, I mean, personally, I was playing a lot of FIFA, a lot of Madden, a lot of Forza and Trackmania kind of games when I was young. Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, my brother and I, yeah, we kind of grew up like with the sports games, but usually I kind of ventured out more than what he done. But usually he stuck to pretty much sports games. Like I mean, like some of the ones that you mentioned, like the Maddens, the NBA Lives, 2Ks, games like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Basically, about your company, like, how did it start? Like, when was it founded? Like, how many people work in there? Just things like that.
Yeah. So essentially, I've been working here for 2 years. We've been working on this game, Mortal Rite, for four.
Hmm.
Um, we initially kind of got our start because a lot of the guys here were programmers or into development. They made a lot of programs that were you get around like different kind of tax softwares, different kind of real estate softwares. Oh, hold up, my battery's being weird. Okay, we're all good now. And so
Right.
essentially, those projects did well enough that they were able to sell them enough, so we got enough funding to basically fund starting to make a game. Um, a lot of the guys here already had backgrounds in game development and designing a video game. Um, and so we decided, hey, instead of making all these kind of boring softwares, let's make something that we're actually like really interested in and that we have a passion about. So yeah, we've been working on. That's kind of how we got our start, and we've been working on it ever since.
That's cool. Like basically, like just like you mentioned, like everybody has a specific role. Like for example, what's your specific role in all this?
So I do basically anything that's not development. We have there's oh, I guess I didn't really talk about our team size. Right now, there's five of us here, four
Okay.
developers, and I do everything on the marketing side. Um, you know, yeah, essentially anything that's not development, I do. I just um, that's kind of the setup that we have here. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and get into Mortal, right? Like, when did this idea come about? Like, who was like behind it? Like, was it you or any member of your teams that was behind
So,
the idea?
oh, behind the idea of it. So
Yes.
essentially, we the way it kind of started off was like four years ago. The guys here did a lot of planning and writing out of different ideas and what kind of where they felt there was a need and where we felt like um, we could make a game that was successful. And so we felt like there was a lot of dark fantasy action type games that were really fun, like a Bloodborne or a Dark Souls or whatever you kind of like in this series. But a
Okay.
lot of them, were single player. They didn't necessarily have stuff that you could do with your friends, and there was other sort of gameplay aspects that we felt like that we could add um, in making our own game. And so that's been kind of like a real driving force is that having all these cool characters that you could select between with special abilities, um, all those cool different upgrade paths, and being able to do all that by yourself, but also being able to like every part of the game that you can do single player and that people normally find fun in single player, you can do with your friends.
Okay. So basically, like the idea, like, say like you or your team, they're like, okay, big fans of RPG, and just go ahead and get started with it, and just basically everybody just brainstorm, to come together, like for the concept of it.
Essentially, yeah, because we started off of I mean, as these things usually do, it started off more casual, started off more as a concept. And as things try to progress, I'm like, oh shoot, we actually have a good game here on our hands. We're making something that at least internally we've been really excited about for the last few years.
Uh-huh.
Um, Within the last year, we've started posting a lot on social media. I don't know if you've seen our TikTok, especially. We almost have 500,000 followers on there. So quick
Well,
plug
that's
if you want
awesome.
to check us out there. That would be
Oh yeah.
amazing. And so we've
Oh yeah, sure will.
we've just seen a lot of we've seen a lot of people like really express interest of this in this game to us as well. So it's kind of just it's been growing just more and more from there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can like give us like a little snippet, like what's the plot all about, like the main character. I mean, what's his background, or who the main protagonist is?
So right now we have we just released a like a demo sort of test build for people to check out. It has 2 characters in it that you can play, Shold and Dachshund. As far as the actual backstory of those characters go, I probably can't really go too much into detail about that yet, just because that's kind of like a lore is a big part of what's going to be in the full game. Right now, it's just more of like showing off the gameplay and like the
Okay.
ideas and the concepts that we have that you can see in that demo. But yeah.
Yeah, I had a chance to check out the demo. It's like, okay, I mean, what I've seen is interesting so far. It's like, okay, I can dig, like the work that's behind the scenes, like the work y'all put into it, things
Yeah,
like that.
it's been a lot. We've had a particular focus on. I mean, you might not necessarily be able to tell just from loading into the game, but every like little bit of the character's armor, all their little accessories have stuff that like fits within their backstory.
Right.
And later, when the full game is released, we would plan to have each character will have their own like level that's based around them. That's essentially like their hometown that they have to progress through. If that makes sense.
Okay. All right. About the gameplay, because usually when games like I always dig the gameplay more than the graphic side of it, because it determines like, okay, is this game fun? Is it not? Things
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Sorry. What was the question?
oh, about the gameplay, like what's it like about like the mechanics behind it?
Oh, so the gameplay itself is very. We went into it with the intention of we don't want to just make a game where you're just spamming the light attacks or the heavy attacks, and that's like, and then that's the combat. You just dodge light attack, or we wanted to make it a lot more complex things with a lot more things to be able to consider, and that each player could have their own strategy for fighting different types of enemies, and that they would have to employ different strategies when fighting different enemies with different kind of characters. So right now, in the demo build that we actually just released this week, we have each character has 8 abilities that you can use, but there's a limit to them, and you have to build up your focus, as we call it, in order to be
Right.
able to use the special abilities. And you interact the using of the special abilities in certain areas, and you counteract that with the character's base abilities of like light attacks and heavy attacks, blocks and dodges and parries. Because that's what we found like when we were playing was like made a game fun is when you figure out kind of initially how to do the mechanics and what works against this thing and what works against that thing. That's what really drove us to be like, oh, this game is fun, it's interesting. Like, and when you get
Right.
good at it, like you feel very like fulfilled of like, wow, I figured this out, I'm doing a great job with this. And we kind of like we took a look at a lot of other games and what made them frustrating and what made some of them like enjoyable. And we're still trying to balance out some of that ourselves with, kind of the difficulty, I guess. We're trying to find
Right.
a good middle ground where like really good players and like pretty average new players to these kind of genre of games are able to come in and enjoy it. Both the
Yeah, I was
same.
gonna ask. Yeah, I was gonna ask about the difficulty. It's like, are you gonna have like one for beginners, one for like for a balance, and of course like one for like for those who want to are like a real challenge, things like that.
So we may in the future, we might our plan is right now is we're trying to balance it so that you don't have to select a difficulty, that we have good tutorials and we have everything else to kind of teach people and teach them
Okay.
like through the fights of like, oh, this is what's effective and this is what's not. So that way an unskilled player can get skilled at this game very quickly and feel like they're a part of it and feel like they're progressing.
Okay. Yeah, since you mentioned like inspirations, like any other games, like giving like ideas, like any like any game you can think of, like your favorite games, like, oh, I like this concept, like this game inspired you, like to design this, like, or kind of put in your design of this game.
Yeah, so I know, like, I haven't really played all these games that I'm about to name, but I know some of the guys like really liked certain aspects of these types of games that um, inspired them in some of their development of it. I know League of Legends is going to be like some of the items from there are really cool, and some of the items like similar kind of things that we might try to implement in our game. Um, Obviously, Dark Souls, Demon Souls type um, like
Oh,
environments,
the
the
masochist
dark
games.
castles, the medieval, like all those kind of aspects. You'll see heavily in our demo and throughout the game as well. I think as far as kind of like roguelike aspects, like Risk of Rain 2
Mm-hmm.
is kind of some inspiration that we're taking from there. Um,
Right.
some of the combat from Bloodborne as well. Those are kind of a lot of games that have um, been a part of the inspiration. So we're trying to take sort of pieces of that we like, but also make it our game and make it fun and make it enjoyable for everyone.
Okay. Before we continue on, I'd say shout out to Honest Gamer. It's like so far the good interview. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right. Yeah, because like continue on, like I see like this game that you have it like on Steam's like is that who you approach first, like with your demo, hoping like they will get your game published on there? It's like was that the idea?
Like you're talking about getting onto Steam?
Yeah, like releasing your game on Steam. Did you approach them or did you go in like any other else like just to hopefully get your game off the ground like to show it off like if you like get the
Yeah.
full version?
So essentially, like as part of indie developers, like a really important part of your game is like getting interest as soon as you can. And realistically, we probably should have created our Steam page like years ago, just so you can start like adding wish lists and getting traction to your game even sooner. Because that's where you're
Right,
going to sell your game, and you have like even if you only get like 100 wish lists in the entire first year that you have it, but like you're basically still in a concept.
right.
That's 100 wish lists that you wouldn't necessarily have. And so for us, we're releasing on PC first because
Okay.
we don't necessarily have the team size yet to port over to all these other things. And if we're at least decently successful, and then we want to port over to all other major consoles.
Right.
Um, we looked into releasing on the Epic Game Store, but they are a lot more exclusive about who they partner with. Um, and so we applied we applied to get in there, and there's some self-releasing features that Epic Game Store might come out with soon. We're still kind of toying around with doing that. But
Okay.
Steam is kind of the easiest one to just release to like just get your game out there and see
Right.
kind of what happens. I think you get to pay like $100 fee, and then you can put your game on there, which hopefully when the size of this game scales up,
Right.
that's not a big number anymore. But um, yeah, I mean that's kind of where we're at with that.
Okay. Do you have like a release date that like for the full version of the game, like when you're going to release it on Steam?
So right now, our plan is to do an early access in spring of this year, probably late spring.
Okay.
Um, there is a chance that may get delayed if we um, get a publisher or like a big publisher to partner with us, or if we
Okay.
get some outside investors. We've been talking to a lot of companies lately, and it seems like there is a good chance that that might happen. So if that were happen, we increase our budget, increase our scope, and just probably delay the release. But also when we do release, create like it'll be a much bigger, more fun, more fulfilled game.
Okay. Yeah, like another thing, like for like a scenario, like say like this game takes off, it's a big hit on Steam and things like that. Like, do you ever think about like publishing like DLC for like future DLC for the game, like to say if this game was successful?
Yeah. So essentially, like we only have two characters in the game that
Hmm.
you can play as right now. We have plans for like we have written out like characters and backgrounds for up to 12 that we
Hmm.
eventually would like to get to if we have time and budget willing. Um, and we have a 5-player co-op as well. So that 5-player co-op is really important to us, that we want to have at least 5 ready by the game release,
Okay.
where if you're playing in 5 players, everyone can actually play as a different player. Because right now, when you play as 5 players, you have to be like, oh, we got to have 3 Dachshunds and 2 Scholds, and it's a little bit repeating. We just, we think that would have a much better feel if everyone could be a different character.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, I forget what I was saying. Go ahead.
I was just asking, like, what, like, the characters, like, there's like certain classes on there, like, just like to break down with.
Yeah, so essentially every character is its own class. Like each character is very unique. The first 2 that we have right now, Shoulder and Dachshund. Shoulder is a very defensive, tanky type character. Especially if you're playing in co-op, he's kind of the guy that's like in the face, throwing up walls, throwing up defense. Dachshund is a lot quicker, a lot more agile. He has less health, but he does more damage. And our other characters will kind of be in their own, even more unique kind of classes than that.
Okay, like someone who does long range, someone who's up close, like a balanced fighter, like things like that, just like variety of classes like people can choose from.
Yeah, like a hunter type or a healer or whatever we end up deciding on. Yeah.
Okay. What's the level up system like? Like,
so right now, as you in our demo, as you progress through the game, as you kill more enemies, your level increases, giving you more, like your just general level, it goes up, which gives you more health, more stamina, and makes your like light attacks and heavy attacks do more damage. In the actual game, you have more of like an upgrade kind of skill path, or
okay.
skill path kind of tree,
Uh-huh.
where you're able to go down different routes of like, oh, I want to have this set of abilities that makes my character more attacking, or I want this set of abilities that is really good in these scenarios against these types of enemies.
Right.
So you have a lot more kind of customization within each character and
Uh-huh.
choices about how you upgrade your character based on that. So like if you want to have a very defensive Shold, you can upgrade your character to like have more of those defensive type of like health stats, but also you can upgrade them to have more defensive type of special abilities to fit that kind of role.
Okay, that's good. Speaking of which, like it's like the game is it like turn based like traditional RPG. Usually somebody takes a turn, enemies take a turn, or is it just like action? Like everybody just tries to go at it. Like everybody goes at it. Like both like your team or your enemies just go at each other until somebody goes down. Is it that kind of concept?
It's not turn based. It's like everyone's going at the same time. They're all fighting. It's I don't know how you like. I mean, sort of like a Dark Souls,
Okay.
Mortal Shell, Elden Ring kind of like type style where you're just going through and fighting enemies, but then you can also do it in multiplayer and you have special abilities and all these different upgrade things and these cool monsters and background and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, because I know because usually like traditional RPG, yeah, sit there wait your turn, you go in attack, but usually with the other version, which I prefer, because like everybody just goes at it, it's like either kill or be killed, that kind of thing. It's like whoever survives, that kind of vibe. That's why I kind of dig at the demo.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit hard for us because from our perspective, it's hard to fit our game into any like one genre that other games are in. So that's why you see if you've seen our Steam page, we kind of reference like 4 or 5 different genres on there
Right.
because it's just like little pieces of each of those essentially that we like.
Yeah, it's always good, because you want to try to stand out instead of being like, oh, you just follow the same trend, things like that. Because I know that's usually like a hard like idea to get out there, but usually like, you can get a good idea of paper. It's just like how you can execute it, like
Yeah.
like like ABC order, like this, that, and the third. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, like because I like this mechanic from this game, or I like the idea from that game. It's like, hey, just kind of like like spin it, and add our own flavor to it. Like, it's like, that's like the idea, like you wanted to bring to this game.
Yeah. So a lot of the combat is if you I'm rerunning a stream right now on our Steam page from yesterday. But if you watch through the gameplay of that at all, or not at all, but like for a little while, you'll see that when I'm playing through the game, there's a lot of different strategies that I have to employ for fighting different types of enemies. A lot of different strategies for, oh, hey, there's 2 different enemies on me. I'm going to use this ability. I'm going to throw up this wall so I can try to fight them more one-on-one or yeah. And those kind of different like sort of fun gameplay aspects are kind of inspired from different fun parts that we found of like different games.
Okay. All right. Another thing, like say like do you plan like adding like more areas to it? Like, people go to this area or like this town, like to interact with NPCs, like, oh, maybe they'll send you out on this quest, like, it's more like, retrieve this item, like if you take this quest, you receive this item and, things like that, just to progress your
Yeah,
character.
so kind of sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, kind of
No,
the next part that we're going to be working on right after the Steam Next Fest is basically just scaling up the number of levels and the type of level themes and the areas that you can go to and explore within the game. Right now, we just have the one test level, which it's fairly long.
okay.
Even if you're really good, you're really good at the game, and it'll probably take you 45 minutes to beat the whole level, 30 minutes maybe. That's our plan to make a lot more nodes. As far as like NPCs go, we talked about it. It is something we would like to do. I think it's not top priority right now. If we get more funding and we get, more excitement, whether that's from outside publishers or early access sales, then we would like to explore that avenue. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. All right. Another thing, like, other than this game, like, if they say, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, like, hey, like this game succeed, like, do you have like anybody else like have like come up with other gaming ideas, like, like, or you think about playing like a future sequel, just like diving in different genres, just you say like, hey, okay,
yeah. So essentially, this game is actually the prequel to the game that we originally wanted to make.
okay,
I guess so. I guess I probably should talk about this at the beginning, but sort of the concept of the game is that you are trying to get into this immortal guild, like you as a character, and you're proving your worth to get into this guild by fighting through all these trials and going through all these levels. That's kind of a simplified version down of what the concept is. And so for the next game, if this game is successful and we can build the next game, it's basically an expansion of that, where now you're in the guild. Here are all the things that you do, and here's all the cool people you're fighting with, and all that. I mean, there is kind of tentative plans for a third game after that, but that's a long way down the road. We haven't put too much stock into that one yet.
Yeah, because I know, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself and like getting too far ahead, because basically you want to make sure it's like, hey, let's see how this will take off, and if everything's all good, you want to take off from there, and like, okay, then we can move forward, like, get more aggressive on it.
Yeah, because I mean, as indie developers, like we spend a lot of time, like a lot of hours every week trying to work on this game, and we have a relatively small team for the amount of stuff and the amount of quality of the stuff that we're trying to make. So we can't really focus on the next games too much and writing out all the story for them yet. We're mostly locked in on this one and trying to do the absolute best that we can with this.
Okay, that's cool. Like, it's like you said, like it's like usually you have someone who does like the story bit of it, and like someone does like the gameplay of it. It's like kind of like meshing the ideas together. It's like it's like kind of like do you like kind of sketch it out like beforehand before like trying to see what you could do, see if this concept works or not.
Yeah. So when we first started, we spent a long time going back and forth as a team doing. I mean, probably like most of the first year was spent just going back and forth and really just concepting everything out, different characters, different abilities, the background of it, how it fits together, the type of gameplay that we're going for. And some of that has changed a little bit as we've kind of experienced more things with the programming, kind of seeing, oh, this is more fun action than what we originally thought, or this isn't quite how we wanted it to turn out.
Right.
I think there was quite a lot of time with our first character, because this is the first game that we're making as a studio.
Okay.
So there was a bit of kind of ramp up time to make our first character Shoal. He was the first one that we made, and Doxson was the second one.
Uh-huh.
But once we figured it out, once we kind of got like a very core idea of what we wanted, scaling up from there has become a lot easier, because we essentially have all the systems built out, and we have the workflow of how to build everything we want in our game. Like, we have at least one of every like aspect of everything we want. And so scaling up from there, because we know, because we've gone through the initial kind of inertia of figuring out how to get to that point, scaling up
Right.
from there is going to be a lot easier. So although it feels like it's kind of slow progress at times to us after being like, for 4 years, we've only had 2 characters, but
Right.
you know, we feel like these characters are really well balanced and really well thought out. And because we're in the situation, we can make a lot more in the next few months, really, than we would have been able to before.
All right. Something I wanted to mention earlier. I was like, how long did it take you to work on the demo? Like, you and your team, how long did it take to get the demo out?
Well, I mean, essentially, this demo is kind of a accumulation of our work for the past 4 years. I wouldn't say that we've just been doing everything we've done for the last 4 years, like, just to prepare for this demo. This demo just sort of showcases not all, but most of what we have that's like final game ready right now. I think as far as like in terms of actually putting this to like level together and bringing all that stuff together and balancing it, that's probably taken us probably the last couple months. We ran a pre-alpha play test with some of our members in our Discord and our Patreon members about a month ago, to kind of go through and play the game and see what they liked, what they didn't like, how we can rebalance, and what are the major bugs that we have to fix. And so for the last month, we've kind of really just been optimizing that and making kind of minor changes, adding better sounds, better animations, rebalancing how much damage or how much stuff does, redoing some animations, so some are quicker, some are slower, all of that.
Okay. Well, pretty much. That's pretty much all the questions I have. Like, before we get out of here, it's like, do you want to do you have any social media? Do you want to give out there before we head out?
Yeah, I guess the number one way for y'all to support us as a studio, and to sort of keep us in your minds as we're moving forward, is by going to our Steam page at Mortal Rite, RITE, and hitting that wish list button. That's the number one way you can support indie developers. It's free and it helps us out a ton. We post a lot on TikTok as well. If you're on there, we post probably like 4 or 5 times a week, just sort of doing updates about where we're at, kind of behind the scenes looks at the things that we're building, and taking a lot of community feedback from there. We have Discord server, and obviously we post on Instagram and Twitter and all of those. So if you search for Mortal Rite on any of those social medias, you should be able to find us.
Okay. Like I said, Alex has been a pleasure interviewing. And like I said, there's a Sinister the Gamer section. Of course, you can follow me on my social medias. Like on Twitter, it's Conshoot19. On Instagram, it's Sinister1019. And like I said, you're always welcome to follow us at the Gamer section. Just hit that subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed this interview, and hope you all drop that like button. Also comment on it. The whole thing said. Have a good day, y'all.
Great. See y'all.